Welcome to the workshop of Dionysus. I'm Barnaby Brown.
And I'm Melinda Maxwell.
And we are discussing aulos reeds for the Louvre. And in fact, in this video, we're going to cover three things. Mm-hmm. First of all, a concept, a tricky concept, one that is particularly difficult for those of us in the West, particularly those of us who've been through a conservatoire training, Western orchestral double reeds. It's maybe not a problem for Middle Eastern or Asian double reed players. Okay, this is a concept that gets in the way of understanding the aulos. Then we're going to look at a solution, and the solution is getting to grips with ancient Greek music theory, because they've got some words and some concepts that really help. They give us a framework, and why invent a framework when one exists that is completely wrapped up with the players and the makers of these instruments? So it sort of makes sense to drink from that cup.
Well, and also it clarifies how they might have played in those days, and to have the theory here, I think, will tell us how these beautiful instruments work, I hope.
Yeah, so the central section of this video is really going to be exploring, I'm just a couple of steps maybe ahead of Melinda. And it's that process, isn't it? It's the gap. So we're going to explore, and hopefully you'll find it useful, because maybe Melinda, you represent the listener, the watcher.
Yes, classically trained oboe player. I've played all sorts of music, and this instrument is totally beguiling me. I need to find out the secret of this beautiful instrument, and it's very difficult at the moment because I have preconceptions of oral training that I'm trying to dismember.
Well, those preconceptions, we all have them. We're all biased. It's the nature of being human. But I'm going to introduce a couple of tricks to help us not fool ourselves. Okay? So there's a particular trick when it comes to testing reeds that really we should all be using, because it's so easy to persuade ourselves that the instrument does something, and it's not the instrument that's doing it. It's us! And then we'll finish with a little bit about parenting. Not parenting children, but parenting reeds. And what happens from when a reed is made to when a reed is playable. That's quite a big journey. It really is like growing up, from pram, changing nappies, feeding. There's a lot of parenting involved. And it doesn't happen quickly. And so I've brought some reeds for Melinda that I've been parenting. And you're going to experience the result of that.
Yes, firsthand today. The reeds I had before were beautiful reeds by Max Blumberg, a Rondo Donax, much, much bigger. I don't know whether you can see the difference, but they're much bigger. And they're much more resistant, and these are extremely lively and soft, and it's a completely different experience for me because the nature of the sound is extremely flexible, and so the support, which we're going to talk about, the support of the diaphragm with the lips, with the ear, is very complex now because it's such an open window.
Okay, and that open window is the first thing we're going to talk about. So it's a concept that's tricky to get our minds around, and we actually need to understand it. It's a concept. We're not looking for a pitch. That's not our object. Okay, it's not the focus.
It's the fingering.
Yes, we're switching our kind of what we're looking at, what we have in our mind's eye. We're switching it from it being, an A at 440 that gets the needle to hit hit zero. No. What we're looking for, what we're thinking about, is a fingering. It's the combination of the fingering and a support, diaphragmatic support, that provides the air pressure and the lip compression, the soft, wet part of the lip that's in contact with the blades of the reed. So those three things, the fingering, the support, and the wet part of the lips. And those three things together as a single package are what we're focusing on, not the pitch. And the reason for that is that actually we want to have a breadth of pitch.
The open window.
Yeah. Rather than having a slit, a narrow slit, we want a window. And Aristophanes is terribly rude about Lassus of Hermione and certain followers of Epigonus. And he's saying that, you can't, it's useless. They talk about a note having breadth. And if you say a note has breadth, nice window, you can't begin to have a serious conversation about pitch. Well, of course he's right. From a certain perspective, Aristophanes is right. You can't talk about pitch if your pitch concept is broad. Well, welcome to the reality of the 5th century BC. Their pitch concept was broad. And the Western Conservatoire pitch concept is hit the meter.
Fixed.
And the trouble is, if you're go on, Melinda.
Well, I'm thinking about this. You see, it's sort of fixed. We have to start from a fixed point, A440. And of course it does move depending on the voicing of chords, the acoustic of a space. So there are lots of things that make it change, but within that we have this fixed line. Of course it's rising now, it's 442, it's going up, but that's a whole other...
It has huge implications. This concept, the altering our perception here has incredible ramifications. It actually changes scholarship. It has a huge impact on not just centimetres, but almost metres of library shelf space of research, because that research is written by people with a fixed pitch concept. And when you approach it with another mindset, with what I would call a more Middle Eastern, Asian mindset, they're quite used to, it's not where you bore the holes that matters, okay? That's not what it's about. You're not tuning the instrument by boring the holes in a certain place. You're tuning it by what you do with that package of support and compression and fingering.
Right, maybe we should demonstrate.
Okay, yes. So, I'm going to take off some reed caps. And shall we begin? We're going to move into now, as we sort of, through practice, make that concept plain and clear. We're going to move into the ancient Greek terminology that gives us a framework. Okay, a framework of stability and safety, from which we can actually open our window. So we're moving from a slit to a window. And we're going to enjoy both ends of that window. And just to demonstrate, I'm going to begin with messe, and that means middle. And it's quite useful because on the low pipe, and we've got no holes covered, none of the bass holes covered. Bass holes are the ones out of reach of the fingers, okay? So you've got certain holes that you can cover with your fingers, and then you've got the bass holes, okay? 2 on the low pipe and 4 bass holes on the high pipe. And these bass holes are out of reach of the fingers. Now, we're going to today keep them all open, so the open configuration. And what happens with to get the middle note on the low pipe, you lift the middle finger. It's great. Okay, nice and easy to remember. Messe is the middle finger. And when you close the middle finger, you get the boss note, or the dominant, okay? Think of it as the dominant person in a business, all right, or a company, or a group. They're the dominant person, or in this case note. You have the middle note, the one who's maybe the leader, and then you have a dominant one, and that's at the bottom. So we're going to go from the hupate, which means boss, or the top note, okay, to the bottom of the instrument. On a guitar or a chitarra, it's at the top. You know, the big fat string, the one you play with your thumb, is on the top. Okay, same with the modern guitar. Same with the ancient barbitos. Okay, top string, that's why it's called top. Okay, 7 strings. The top fat one with the thumb is your hupate, the top string, the boss string. The middle string, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, the 4th string, that's your middle string, is called middle. And to get it on the aulos, on the low pipe of the aulos, you're going to lift your middle finger. And that gives you a 4th. So you can think of it in terms of tonic and dominant. You've got your dominant note, the hupate, and your tonic note, which is messe. Let's give it a go. And I'm going to have on my high pipe, I'm going to have all fingers down, and that gives the messe. So closed on the high pipe, middle finger up on the low pipe. And now for my, it's not going to be a slit.
Nope.
It's going to be a window. Okay? So we just need to release ourselves from the idea that it should be one pitch. And I'm going to suggest that it should be a window. And that's what Lassus of Hermione and the followers of Epigonus meant. And what Aristophanes was being rude about. So let's hear your pitch window, Melinda.
Right.
You're racing ahead. Well done. Yes, you're moving ahead and giving us the octave.
Pardon. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Now you didn't give us. You see, I'm pulling you. You're still in this conservatoire place where you're expecting the instrument to produce a pitch. I've slit. Okay. Now, can I just push you away from? I'm going to push you east. Okay, I'm going to push you south. I want to hear a pitch window. I want to get that bendiness. And can you give us some beats? How about this? So don't go down to the boss yet. Don't go up to nete. Nete is actually, it means the furthest string, because on your instrument, what is the fa string? Nete is the top note. And it's confusing because it's actually the bottom of the guitar. Yeah? It's called, so nete is the far one, the one in the distance. Don't get there yet. Let's stick with messe. We're going to stay in the middle, okay? And I want you to exercise the elasticity of embouchure and let's keep the support constant. Okay, we want strong support. And where I'm going to encourage you to explore your window, your pitch window, is on the wet part of the lip. Okay, the placement and the compression. So there are 2 elements here. There's arm action, which is elbow and wrist, pulling the instrument in and out, and there's also compression. So you squeeze the retarder with the wet part of your lip, and the more surface area you have, the more control you have. So I'd encourage you to really enjoy the wet part. And also, the closer you are to the tip of the reed, the more everything you have. Expressive range, timbral range, and pitch range. So don't push in too far. However, you can get a good pitch range, good pitch window by going in and out, and you can get a wonderful pitch range by compressing more and less. Keep your support strong would be my recommendation. Really lovely and strong. Okay, so there I'm practicing, I'm stretching my window one pipe at a time. Give it a go.
buzzing. There's a buzzing in the ear. There's this fluttering when it's, just off. And then when you come into the middle and it stops, there's this beautiful piece with the pure tone. So that's the guide, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, I think, and I think actually the buzzing that you get, the interference beats. The beauty of that, because you hear it kind of hits you. Yeah, the sonic waves of that interference, like ripples in water. It's hitting you sonically, and I think that's very much part of the beauty of the aulos.
Yes.
So you play with that. Now you were exercising a pitch window in your low pipe, but not in your high pipe. Okay. Now you need to exercise both.
Right.
And I will say that these reeds, no reeds are identical. Okay. And these reeds, it's absolutely true. Your low pipe reed, I have intentionally put the slightly beefier one that's a bit more open and gives a bit more body to the sound. I put it in the low pipe. But see if you can get a nice range down to the bari end. Okay, bari is the Greek word. They have a baripuknon for the low compression, the mesopuknon for the kind of middle range, and then the oxypuknon for the high. See if you can find your place, and I don't mind where you start. You might be in the meso place or you might be in the oxy place, but see if you can just whatever place you are with your low pipe reed, exercise the high pipe reed now.
Oh.
So it's middle finger open on your low pipe
and
all down on your high pipe.
Okay.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So there we go. We'll wrap up now. That is the first part of this video finished, explaining that the aulos is not about a slit, a pitch slit. It's all about a pitch window and the extra light that brings into our music making.
So the flexibility and the fluidity of the pitch is a bit of an unknown area, because I need to train my ear to know where this is sort of stable, so that I know how to be flexible. This is something I need to get used to, because these are so new, these reeds, and so flexible, that I have to train my ear very carefully, I think.
And that's why we have the second part of this video. Because the way that I would encourage you to do that, okay, this is totally new, and it's new for everybody who receives this instrument. Okay, if you've got an aulos, you've got a pair of reeds, we're at sea. We're we don't have an anchor, we don't have anything to tether ourselves to. Well, you're about to get that anchor. What I'm going to suggest you do is, having released yourself from the idea that there is a pitch slit, or that what you're focusing on is a needle on a meter. No, just you need to forget that, because where the needle's going to be on the meter depends on the mood of your reeds, or how wet they are and which reeds they are. So you're not trying, or at least at this stage in the revival, we're not trying to hit a meter. We're trying to find the window. You're testing the window. You're seeing where the top rim of your window is and where the bottom rim of your window is, and exploring those areas, not the middle pipe.
No, and it's also the sound, I think, because the sound is key to finding where that sits.
Yes.
There's a sound that actually blooms, and that's what we're after, I think, is it?
Yes.
Yep.
So often we produce an underpowered sound, okay? Not enough support, not enough compression, flat, flabby, okay? So we want to increase the support, increase the compression, get further towards the tips of the reed, where you have to use more compression, and squeeze harder. There's a sort of, it's a power, a vibrancy that you achieve there, the richness in the sound.
Yes,
that's beautiful.
it sings. There's some sort of quality of singing that is the aulos. What is that?
Okay,
We need to find it.
so we are going to find that quality of sound on a framework. And that framework, in ancient Greek terminology, they're the fixed notes of the tetrachord. or of the Dorian harmonia. Okay, and that harmonia has basically, you have the middle note, and then you have, let's call it the messe, okay, the middle, and then you have a fourth below it, hupate, the boss, okay, and the boss and the middle are what we get on the low pipe just by lifting and closing the middle finger. Okay, we go from the dominant to the tonic, or from the boss to messe, all right? And that is our primary framework, those two fixed notes.
Yeah.
So then what I'm going to do, having sort of settled from messe to hupate on the low pipe, I'm then going to introduce the fixed notes on the high pipe. And so that with all fingers closed, that's messe, the middle. And then I'm going to lift my little finger. And so I'm going to move from, you might call it the tonic to the supertonic, or the middle to the super middle, all right? The one above the middle note. And that gives us the fifth. So we're going from a pure fourth to a pure fifth, and getting that, enjoying those overtones is crucial. So let's just do that. Okay, so it's a bit wobbly, a bit kind of not there first off. You've got to wet your lips, wet your reeds, get your support going, bring the instrument up, feel the stretch between your shoulder blades, feel the stretch at the back of the neck. Imagine you're in an amphitheatre playing to 5,000 people, and the way in which you hold yourself as an aulos player. Yeah, fabulous. And that sound corresponds to a pure fourth. Now, I didn't get there straight away, a little bit of portamento. I had to pull out my low pipe.
Well, I think that's the beauty of the aulos. It's not going to suddenly play a fourth, is it? We've got to find it.
Okay, well, yeah, we're tuning the soul. Could you just try that?
Oh, no, wait a minute. I've got all fingers down in the left.
Yes, so first of all, find your messe and your boss.
I'm pitching to you now.
Yes, find you. So don't do that. Recalibrate. Wonderful.
Well,
so that's messe, messe, and paramesse, messe, hupate. Okay, those are the fixed notes, the primary fixed notes of the ancient Greek musical system, the unmodulating system.
Yeah.
Okay, systema ametabolon, and they're the bass notes of the three tetrachords. Which we could think of as dominant, tonic, and or tonic, subdominant, and dominant. But think of them. I prefer to use the Greek terminology. So you have hupate, boss, messe, middle, and paramesse, the one above the middle, a tone above the middle. And those tetrachords are called diasdeugmenon, the disjunct. So the one that begins on paramesse is diasdeugmenon. Disjunct. The one that begins on messe is synemenon, conjunct, and the one that begins on hupate is meson, the middle tetrachord. And those three tetrachords form the unmodulating system. In other words, a key. Okay, so a piece might consist of these three tetrachords: meson, synemenon, conjunct, and the one a tone higher, diasdeugmenon, disjunct. And that is those are the anchors. Those are the three reference points. So now let's add nete. So nete is the fa note, or the fa string, and it is an octave this is the nete dies daugmenon, okay, the disjunct nete, and it's an octave above our boss. So let's just find that boss again. And we're going to get it with the thumb, okay? Really important, because you could get it with your index finger. Okay, remember we've got a big pitch window, so you can get it with, different fingerings. But we're going to look for it with the thumb. And initially, when I lift my thumb, it might be a bit flat. Okay, and that's just normal. It's if you give a clarinet or an oboe to a beginner, often the high notes are flat because they don't have the developed embouchure, or they're not supporting.
Well, it does depend on the reed, but let's not go there. That's too complicated.
Of course, it depends on the reed. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
But let's raise that thumb and just notice a bit of flatness, and then using support and lip placement, bring it into tune. So there are a few scents there that I have to just, either with a bit of arm to alter the placement, just to bring it up. And that also, I think it's a nice compensation. It's kind of nice for it to be that way round, because sometimes the top notes are a bit raucous, and by putting them in a little bit, it just sweetens the tone colour, and it reduces the volume, so you get a bit of balance. And the same is true at the bottom end of the instrument. So if you feel that your bottom note is a bit sharp, and you have to push out a little bit, that
Good news.
brightens it, and it actually leads us into a more balanced tone. There's a nicer sonic balance between the top notes and the bottom notes. So it's not necessarily out of tune, or it being bored out of tune might not be a problem. It might be precisely what they intended.
Shall I try that?
Go on. Give us nete with your thumb.
Okay, I'm too sharp at the bottom. I'm just going to readjust. Movable.
Okay. Now, in fact, what you might find, and this is a good thing about body, for releasing body tension. Some musicians have terrible problems. And in fact, you know what? Let's just relish the fact that maybe intrinsically the instruments are built with that note being a bit flat. So let's put a bit of a wobble in it. And that wobble is very freeing. Okay? That wobble helps us let go of tension if we're doing it physically with our arm. So just try this. Okay, I'm actually using my arm and give it a little bit of vibrato. Go on, try it, Melinda.
This is exactly what we don't tell our students to do on an oboe, because the vibrato is covering up bad intonation. Well, I've got this very interesting buzz in the middle of my embouchure, which is just happened because these are new reeds today, and I've got this buzzing in between the reeds, which is very strange. So I've got to sort that out. I don't know what that is.
It's brand.
It's a very different experience here.
Our muscles are amazingly the neuroplasticity of our organism never ceases to amaze me. So your muscles will move in to being able to do something that they're not able to do now. You know, this has happened to me time and time and time again, particularly with the aulos. You know, thinking I'd never be able to play this instrument because the holes are too far apart.
It's interesting because with an oboe reed, it's exactly the middle place. And so I'm using not the middle place. So this is feeling divorced from everything, you see. It's unhappy.
Yeah. Well, this is where sometimes the mind of the expert or the muscles of the expert can be problematic. When we're trained in a particular way, that can close our minds or muscles to being able to do something else. And this is, you know, why, you know, in good science, your whole objective is not to not fool yourself. And when we're trained in one particular path, and scientists have just the same problem.
Yes.
It closes down your view. So we're kind of, you know, the aulos is a wonderful way to help us, pull us towards doing good science, you know, good practical experiment. And so I think we should move on now.
Yes.
We're going to sort of conclude this middle section, which is giving you some anchor points, somewhere firm in this very scary soup or window of opportunity. Okay, where do we fix ourselves? Okay, well, fix yourself on hypate, mese, paramese, and nete. And these are the fixed notes of what you could call a Dorian harmonia, okay? Or a sistema a metabolon, an unmodulating system, which really just means that it's one key. You're not when you move between these three tetrachords that form the Dorian octave, you're not actually modulating. You're in the same key. So that's why it's called an unmodulating system of three tetrachords. Okay, so we've got that framework, and I'm gonna, as a sort of transition into the last part of this video, I'm going to throw in a couple of words that are used in Highland piping, but they're very useful, bringing a sort of experimental, scientific approach to the aulos. This is scientific method. Do whatever you can, whatever it takes, to not fool yourself into thinking something is true that isn't, or thinking something is not true that is. And with the aulos, we very easily fool ourselves. And we fool ourselves because the pitch window exists, and because we forget that it exists. And so I remember, you know, one morning I would be thinking, or one day I would be completely convinced that the Pidna aulos was a kind of majorish sort of scale. And then the next day I'd be playing, and it definitely felt minor. How could it be major one day and minor the next? Well, we can easily fool ourselves because we forget that we're making tiny little adjustments, or we become unaware of the tiny little things that we're doing. And in order to protect ourselves, to not fool ourselves, I highly recommend every aulos player gets into the habit of checking in with the whole boring, so that you know what you're doing with your lip, checking in with cuts and strikes. And I'll just explain cuts and strikes because they are a way of not fooling yourself, being more scientific about understanding the instrument and the relationship between the whole boring and the intonation that you deliver as a complex sum of whole boring, fingering, support, and lip compression and placement. Okay?
So we need to know what the cutting and the striking is.
Here is a demonstrate. I'm going to cut from hypate. I'm going to cut hypate by just lifting my middle finger. Okay? Those are going to be called cuts. In other words, they're just like tonguing. I'm cutting hypate using a little grace note. And I'm making that cut as short as I possibly can. Just literally, nothing changes. So my whole setup, my support, my placement, whatever, nothing is changing. So I don't fool myself into thinking that the pitch of Misse is something else. And then, after doing a few cuts, now I'll put it into a 6/8 rhythm. After doing a few cuts, I'm going to switch to doing strikes. And it's in doing cuts and strikes that you learn what the difference is. How out of tune, or where the whole boring is in relationship to what you might want to do. Do you want to just have a go with a cut and a strike?
Wait a minute. Something.
Yes.
Something.
Along that. So the thing about cuts and strikes is that you can do a melody either way. Okay, so you can play a little tune. And then you can do it the other way around. So I can tell that those notes are sharp. Okay, so at the moment with these reeds and this setup between support and placement, that's not in tune. No, that doesn't mean to say that it's not where I want my reeds to be, because it depends what you're wanting to do. I could make sharper reeds and maybe get that into tune. But at the moment, I'm actually quite happy with having that. Let's say everything's a little bit on the narrow side. Now, of course, we change, and I may have a different view on that. It's definitely, let's say, there are many. I believe it's important we try different approaches. Mm-hmm. And that we that none of us are fundamentalists saying our way is best. Mm-hmm. No, let's explore things. We're aware that we all are going to move our position.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I need to log how I'm processing, with how I'm learning this, because there might be something on the way that might be of interest to somebody, or might think, God, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I'd known that earlier. So,
well, let's wrap up now this final section, which is really about the transfer of, it's you getting to know a completely different sort of aulos reed.
Yes.
What does it feel like?
Well, it's completely different. They're more flexible. They are, the pitch window is enormous. With the other reeds, it was more fixed, and there's much less resistance. So that means it's much lighter to blow. I'm noticing that when I blow a lot of air through, the pitch goes up. When I play less, it goes down. So that in itself is a massive difference. So the constancy of airflow, the high pressure of airflow, I need to find where those live. And then, of course, because they're so soft, I hope that I will be able to double breathe, because I couldn't on the others because they were quite resistant. These are much more relaxing altogether. So there's lots to do. I
do feel one of the reasons that I would advocate, particularly for learners, aulos learners, I would advocate reeds that are a delight to play. Yeah, you don't want to be working physically. You want a reed that's appropriate to give to an 8-year-old. Okay, you don't want to be busting guts or making veins come out your forehead. It wants to be a pleasure to play. And if we learn how to circular breathe, on an easy instrument, and learn how to stabilise our pitch, using that framework of the boss, the middle, the supra-middle, and the fa, that framework, the fixed notes of the Dorian harmonia.
It's an enormous world, isn't it? Because the universe of this it's so big. At the moment, I'm a bit in awe of how I'm going to actually find a stable place. It's a bit. I've got to find the planets sometime.
Well, just enjoy. So I would advocate searching the beauty of sound.
Beauty of sound, absolutely.
Beauty of sound and beauty of body. Okay, think about that body hanging in a really focus on the breadth between your shoulders. Okay, the span out there, and as you play, a beauty of sound that just carries and is enticing, alluring. You don't want, obviously, stronger reeds last longer and have a brighter, better tone. You're going to win the competition with stronger reeds. Okay, that's how it is. All right, but I do feel that that it's important. We're not all of us, but like playing clarinet. It's not. You can't. Not everyone's going to want to be playing a 2.5 or a 2. Lots of people are very happy, and it changes what you do if you're playing a 1.5 on a clarinet. Yeah, and I presume it's the same with the oboe.
Oh, I don't know what you mean by 1.5. What does that mean?
In clarinet,
yes.
On clarinet reeds, they're sold at grades, and so 1.5 is easy, and yes. 2 is kind of medium, and 2.5
yes.
is.
Well, we make all our reeds, and so I've got to a place where I'm gouging much more, so I'm using a softer bit of cane to make my reeds, which means I take less off. This is complicated because the less you take off, the more quality.
Well, I certainly, I love aulos reeds where you've got more. They last longer, and you've got more to go with if there's more kind of timber, more cane on the reed. But okay, so let's just sum up these multiple routes that we have. Hard reeds, light reeds. The merit of light reeds for you, Melinda, I feel at this stage in your aulos journey is really mastering the circular breathing.
Yeah, it would be good to do that. Just to ease so I can play a very long line and not feel constricted in that, because sometimes you do want to keep going. Obviously, it's lovely to have breaths too.
What I would encourage you is when you're practicing your circular breathing is go for beauty of tone. Yeah, and just try. So you might and seek beauty of tone at both ends of your pitch window. All right. So you've got the sweet golden focused oxy end, the top of the window, pitch-wise, and then you've got the brighter, louder, maybe more vulgar, but I don't like to think of it as vulgar. Yes, you might think of it as slack, but really it's got more potential. It's kind of more pregnant. It's a possibility of expressive. The world is richer. Okay, you can't get the honey sweetness that you can at the oxy end, but you can get a lot more range of timbre at the bari end. Yeah. So cultivate your circular breathing at both ends of your pitch window.
Yep.
Okay.
I've got to be able to do it first.
Well, you can do it.
Well, I've done it once. I've done it once today, which means it's doable.
Great. Okay.
Right.
Well, we'll wrap up there. I think the main thing with these aulos reeds is guard them with your life.
Yes.
Just develop a particular sense. These are all important. Okay, they have different purposes. There are the ones that are appropriate for parenting, which are maybe a bit firmer on the blades, more like sheaths, keeping the ends of the blades parallel in contact. But once they've been sort of domesticated, once they behave well, then you might want to have sheaths or protectors that aren't educators. They're just protectors. So the voyage of the parenting process is very much. I don't do it with a knife. Yes, I might do some intervention with a knife, but substantially the parenting I do on aulos reeds is by sheath.
Yeah.
And so I've just switched. So I've been parenting those reeds for you with these, and they've got a very narrow slit, and it's sort of parallel. Yeah, I've not got an eye. Okay, when I first was making reed, calling them reed caps, they had a great big eye. Okay, now that's useless. Absolutely useless for parenting. Okay, it's not going to parent the reed. It's not going to educate it to behave. For education purposes, from the birth of a reed to being able to give it to somebody that they can actually work with it, so that they're kind of relatively stable and predictable, you need what I would call reed educators, which really work on just above the onion. So the reed has that lovely onion. You want a nice onion. That's essential, so it sort of keeps it opening out. And then above the onion, it comes in, and you have this parallel with the blades. You want those. The educating effect is just above the onion together, and so important. But those reeds now have been educated. So in fact, you can change to
the oval.
More of not. I wouldn't. I still keep it parallel.
Just at the end.
Yeah, parallel at the tip,
Okay.
and that's all they need.
Yep.
And just to make sure that you always have your reed protectors on, and I hope they give you not just months, but years and years and years of pleasure. They'll always be easy, okay. And that's great if you've had you're out of condition and you've not been playing for say a month, and you pick up and you want to get going again. You can play immediately. You could play on reeds that are that easy. You don't have to be in condition. You could play for 2 hours straight off. That's not the sort of reed that a competitor would want to use in an aulos competition. Okay, absolutely not. But for learning purposes and for gaining a love of the instrument and a feeling of comfort and ease, I'd recommend it.
Thank you, Barnaby.